Dartmouth says it will once again require SAT and ACT scores for admission after suspending the standardized exams because of the pandemic. A new study by the university found test scores could have helped less advantaged students gain access to the Ivy League school. But the move's raising questions about what's to come from other colleges and what it all means for students. I want to bring in ABC's Brad Milkey, host of the Start Here podcast, for more. Brad, let's rewind here for a second, because during the pandemic, the College Board had to cancel several test rounds of these tests, and so colleges stopped requiring them. And then post-pandemic, a lot of them have made these test scores optional. So how's that been working?
Yeah, this was sort of framed as a pandemic move to, you didn't know whether kids were taking them in a room with each other or whatever, so a lot of schools were like, you can just make the test optional, don't worry about it. Some schools, though, went even further, and they said, this is such a great lowering of a barrier. So many students, who don't have expensive tutors, never were applying to these schools anyway, and now they can't, now that this sort of barrier to entry is removed, they actually saw applications go up at schools like Dartmouth and some of these Ivy League schools. And so other schools around the country, the UC system, no longer even has spots for the SAT scores. They don't consider it as part of their application process. So that's how much this movement has kind of taken fire based on what was a pandemic change that is now more or less common at a lot of schools, except Dartmouth says, actually, we'd like to go back, please.
So what's the takeaway here for students? And what does this do for the debate of whether standardized tests favor privileged students or not?
Well, it's a big debate, and it's been a big debate because there is this question about, is the SAT does it help you distinguish between students, or is it just a barrier of entry that keeps certain students out the door who are not applying to your school in the first place? Dartmouth put together the study, and they said, actually, we noticed that a lot of students were withholding their SAT scores. It's optional now. You don't have to put them. And a lot of students weren't. And they would have helped those students had they put their SAT scores in. They thought they weren't good enough. Dartmouth is like, they were good enough. This would have been an extra sort of feather in your cap. You would have gotten in. Instead, we find ourselves admitting more, like a less diverse student population because we're not seeing the scores. However, I talked to an expert at the University of Washington who basically said, this leaves out a key part of the story here, which is that Dartmouth's applications skyrocketed. They went from 20,000 to 30,000 applicants. What that tells you, he says, is it's not that if you require SAT scores from all these kids that suddenly now, yes, you'll see all their scores. Now you can compare them more accurately. It's that you just won't have as many students applying. That's what it tells you, is that these students, once they saw that barrier reduced and were like, oh, I don't have to bring my SAT score in here? Great, I'll actually apply. A lot of people are concerned that those students will now sort of go back into hiding, as it were.
Interesting.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.